Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I will call this meeting of the Woodford County Fiscal Court's Contracts and Leases Committee to order. Madam Clerk, if you would, please call the roll.
Squire Gentry. Squire Varner.
Here.
Squire Blackford.
Present.
Judge Executive K.
Yes, ma'am. We are duly constituted to begin our business. The first item on the agenda today is the Woodford Reserve easement presentation. We have some guests from Woodford Reserve, and if you don't mind to turn on the mic and introduce yourself for the record.
Sure. I'm Mike Beach with Brown Foreman, Woodford Reserve.
Thank you, Mr. Beach, and the floor is yours to discuss the easement request that you're going to have for the county.
Yes.
Take it away.
First of all, I appreciate y'all having us up here. I'll try to walk through this map as quickly as possible and then take it from there. So we have warehouse site over in Midway, right off of Georgetown Road, Highway 341, I think it is, which would be on the left-hand side up there, right where the yellow line is coming off of it. The parcel to the bottom with the blue dot in it, that is what our first purchase was back in 2016. Shortly thereafter, we entered into an IRB, I think, industrial revenue bond with the county. When we did that, basically we deed the land back to the county as part of that, and then we built our warehouses on it. All the grayed out warehouses you see there, 7 of them have barrels going in them. There 2 are in process of being constructed. The parcel up to the top right that's got the 2 green boxes in it, we purchased that in 2021 with the intent of further development of warehouses. We just recently purchased the small parcel up near the road, I think it's about 44 acres this year. So those 3 parcels we purchased. So where we're at is the next phase of our development is to build 2 warehouses shown in green on our new parcel. As we were preparing the development plan, as part of the survey, that parcel is deemed landlocked from a public highway. So therefore we can't, it's the issue is we're landlocked. So what we'd like to request of this group is 2 easements. The first easement would be the yellow. So if you can imagine, as we're taking barrels in and out of the green warehouses, we can come to the yellow, use our existing roads and the existing road that goes over to Highway 341. So that's the first easement. The second easement is for our alcohol containment pond. So we, through our design and trenches, etc., if there were to be an event, we can contain the alcohol in that blue pond. It's basically the size of 1 warehouse, and that's our existing pond in the blue. So what we're asking is to be able to take a pipe from the 2 green warehouses across the boundary there and take it to that. So that's the second easement. So that's where we are right now. And be glad to answer any questions or see what y'all go from there.
So that is the nature of the request. And again, if you don't mind, just to reiterate what the easements are again, just
Okay.
to make sure everybody's clear.
The first easement would be crossing the parcels at the yellow line, where the green, the drive from the green would hit the yellow, and then we would have an easement along that roadway and the roadway all the way out to Highway 341. So that's the first easement request. That takes the landlocked condition off of the parcel for our development plan. The second easement, to be able to use the existing alcohol containment pond, would be able to take a pipe basically across the 2 parcels lines there, so we could use that existing pond.
So that's the nature of the request. The goal would be for your council, I think it's Mr. Rochelle, Steve Rochelle, would draft up those easement documents and present those to our county attorney and then to the full fiscal court for us to have those to review. And then we would have to, obviously, as we've done with the easement for the annex, for the downtown market pavilion area, and some other easements we've passed, we would have to then grant that easement by virtue of a fiscal court vote. So I would like to open up the floor for any questions for Mr. Beach about the request, the easement. Any other questions that you have? Squire Varner, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Judge. Your easement, that's putting in a road around that, the yellows, the new road you're putting in?
The yellow is existing. The road in yellow around that one warehouse is existing.
Existing. So
Everything in yellow is existing.
So you're getting the easement from the two greens over to that road?
Yes, sir.
And then the pipe that would carry
Yes, sir.
the alcohol back to the containment pond?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you very much.
Not a problem.
Thank you, Squire Varner. And just to be clear, the alcohol containment pond is a fire-related, emergency-related
Right. That's the thing.
runoff.
Right.
If
If
you
there
wanna
was any
explain
type
that a
of an
little-
event in the warehouse where alcohol were to spill in great quantities, that we have trenches inside the warehouse that go to underground pipes that wind up in that pond. So keeps it from, then we have to deal with it at that point.
And we are familiar somewhat with some of that containment. We dealt with the Jim Beam warehouse fire in Millville, and obviously that was a different generation of safety mechanisms and protocols. But yes, other questions or comments?
Judge.
Yes, Mr. County Attorney.
Just a couple questions. So the alcohol containment easement is kind of like a utility line
Yes, sir.
easement.
Yes, sir.
The other is more typical, say, ingress, egress, that sort of thing. What would be traversing across that?
Across our barrel trucks.
No, okay.
And employee traffic, any traffic that's coming in and out of that site would come down there.
Okay.
So right now, any employees that come on site, construction vehicles, as we
I was
continue
going
to.
to say, how heavy would these trucks be?
Oh, do y'all have there's, trucks full of barrels, so I'm not sure off the top of my head how heavy they would be. But it's the traffic that's been going up and down that road since we built
Okay.
it.
Same,
Yes.
okay. Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Other questions or comments? I would just note that Mr. Rochelle is here, and if you want to introduce the folks
sorry?
that are with you? No, that's fine.
Not a problem. This is Lindsay Neese. She is the distillery bottling warehousing manager at Woodford Reserve, and this is Michael Nelson. He is the overall plant director for the Woodford Reserve.
Excellent. Thank you all for being here. I had the opportunity to meet with these folks. I think you've talked to Mr. Rochelle, Mr. County Attorney, and so there's no action item for the committee. I'll ask again if anybody else has any questions. Any members of the court that are here have any questions? Seeing none, we will take this under review and welcome any easement documents to review. And do you all have any questions for us?
Other than just the next steps, just let us know what we need to do.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you all. Thank you for being here. You're more than welcome to stay, but you're also free to go on about your evening.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate your time. Have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. All right, the next item on the agenda is the Woodford County Fair Board Association lease. We took the lease under review at a meeting a few weeks ago, and during that time there was some discussion of a potential need to edit the lease for a potential grant request. And my understanding is that in that grant request, typically that requires a 20-year lease, but I also understand that from attending Fair Board meetings that it doesn't appear the Fair Board is going to be applying for that grant in this grant cycle. And so the one thing that I wanted to discuss in relationship to the term and the period of the lease is there's a letter to the magistrates from the county attorney of 2015 that discussed how our continuation of the lease and Mr. County Attorney, maybe you can explain that historical essentially, we've turned it into somewhat of a appearance of a perpetual lease. And
yes.
so I wanted to bring that up for the fiscal court and the contracts committee's understanding.
Judge, based on my review, I guess we go back to the Woodford County Fair Association was incorporated in July of 1960. I was 5. So I had nothing to do with any of that. Then the next step I really didn't have anything to do with either. I was assistant county attorney. Mr. Gormley was county attorney. The first lease was adopted in 1992. And that was a 5-year lease to begin in January of 92 and end in December of 97. And then there was an opportunity to extend it for 5 years. So that was the original lease. It could have been 10 years. Since that time, there have been a number of changes to that. And I want to go back to the most recent, the ones that I had the direct involvement in, and that goes back to 2006. We amended the lease. At that time, it was supposed to go from 2006 to 2016. Prior to 2016 and 2012, we changed it again. It was to go to 10 years to 2022. The very next year, in 2013, we changed it again to go to September of 23. 2 years later, in 2015, we changed it again to go to September 25. And then this court dealt with it under your judgeship, Judge, beginning in 2022, when it was changed to go to 9/30 of 2032, and then there are the provisions to extend that. So it's never really had the opportunity to just go from the beginning to the end of the term. There have been requests throughout to expand it because of grants being sought or whatever was necessary, and the court, to its credit, has always granted that request. And like I say, we have revised this so many times. The only thing we revised, though, was the language relative to the term of the lease and not the terms within the lease. One in particular that has held throughout that time was that I know some members have an interest in, going back to the 92 lease, and that language has been present throughout. And what it says is the board further agrees that all use of said property shall be done in a proper and appropriate manner, considering and taking into consideration all of the other persons and agencies that use the county park property from time to time. And the board further agrees it shall, at the request of the court, listen to and seriously consider reasonable comments and requests from the court concerning the use of property, and shall at all times cooperate within reason with the court in matters concerning the use of this property, as well as the use of all surrounding property. So it really put the onus on the fiscal court. If there were requests to come in for some other use by some other group or agency, it had to come through the court. But that language remains in the lease that you last approved in 2022. So that's the most recent lease that we are operating under. Again, that one is set to expire on September 30th of 2032, unless there was a grant that they received that required a 20-year lease, and then it would go to September 30th of 2042. So as I understand it, that has not happened, so it is set to expire September 30th of 2032, which would make it basically have been not necessarily totally perpetual, but in effect perpetual since 1992 for 40 years. So that is where we currently stand. Again, the last lease was executed 2 years ago, set to expire 8 years from now unless there's a grant that requires a 20-year lease. And the lease has basically, other than the term, remained unchanged in the, I guess we are now 32 years into it.
Thank you, Mr. County Attorney, for that explanation. And one of the things that is pretty straightforward, at least in the Kentucky case law, is that you can't have a perpetual lease. You can't have leases that never end. And I think that some of the court's renewals of the lease since '92 have essentially made it the equivalent of a 50-year lease, or a lease in that range, in that time frame, which just means that we need to review that so that it is more in line with where the law is. You point out, Mr. County Attorney, that 25-year leases were potentially all right under the law, 20-year leases, but a 50-year lease was specifically rejected in the Kentucky case law. So I think one of the things that this contracts committee needs to do is look at reviewing the term of the lease, and that's a discussion we can have with the Fair Board. I'd like to note that members of the Fair Board are here. And that's a discussion that we would have as a sideline, as something not in fiscal court. But I will say that I attend most of the Fair Board meetings as a ex officio member on behalf of the court. But in that scenario, I would be working with the Fair Board to come up with a reasonable lease term that would hold us within that lawfully compliant period of time, which would definitely mean not to 2032. So I'd like to open up the floor for discussion of any of the other items in the lease that the fiscal court would like to bring to the attention in any potential discussion with the Fair Board about the current lease that is currently operating for the Fair Board. Squire Varner, sir, you're recognized.
Thank you, Judge. Just as County Attorney, Mr. County Attorney was talking there, I see his point, and I was looking through as I've been serving on the contracts and leases. Most of our leases are 1 year renewable that we look at and vote upon. And as I was going through the Fair Board's lease and looking at this, my suggestion is something to talk about is maybe a 2-year lease, and we renew every 2 years, and that way we don't have a perpetual lease, but we do have a lease that we can look at and vote on and tweak if we need to.
If I may respond to this. One of the things and when I addressed the fiscal court back in 2015 is what's good about something like that is you don't want to bind successor fiscal courts who may have a different approach to it than a sitting fiscal court may. And something like a 2-year lease allows one sitting court to look at it a couple of times, but doesn't bind the successor court from looking at it. Those are things you all can discuss and consider, and if we're going to revisit it, this would be the time to do it.
Right. And also, as we discussed before about opening the park up a little bit more for other entities to use it, maybe we also just suggestion is to have in the terms for the Fair Board to have the park month before the fair and a month after, so they can do their cleanup and their because I know there's a lot of cleanup after that, concession stand and that sort of thing, and they can review how the fair went and that sort of thing. But that's a couple of suggestions I have going forward as we work through this. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Squire Varner. And I think one of the other things that, if I'm correct, that you're suggesting would be the other facilities of the fairgrounds outside of Peyton Hall. Is that kind of
Yes,
what you're
Yes,
suggesting?
sir, that's what I'm suggesting. Sorry, I wasn't clear enough.
No, I just wanted to make sure that we know that's essentially the Fair Board's headquarters and operating offices. We would anticipate they would need the use of that year-round. Squire Blackford.
So Judge, you said we would meet with them and hear their input about the lease, whatever, what's gonna be in the lease, that kind of thing?
Yes, yes, sir. That would be the plan, is to work on a new lease that everybody's in agreement with and takes into account some of the things that we've discussed. Specifically, the lease term. Something additional, Squire Barnett?
Yes, Judge, thank you. And that puts us in line with the other leases that we can, as we meet through contracts and leases, we can look at all of them at one time instead of having one outline. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have any other discussion or suggestions regarding the Woodford County Fair Association lease with the fiscal court? Does anybody from the Fair Board or is connected to the fair wish to say anything or speak? Seeing none, I think we're good to move from that agenda item and move into our independent contractor agreements. Moving right along, Jordan, maybe we didn't need to have a 4 o'clock. Maybe we should have had a 4:30. I just couldn't wait to get in here and start meeting. All right, the independent contractor agreement, the first one before you all is for the Jack Jewett House. And we have advertised and extended a review period for potential independent contractors for the Jack Jewett House. The Heritage Committee has met and screened candidates, so to speak, and as has Sam Dunn, who's our current executive director. As you all know, Sam is, he's moving on. He's going to be in Louisville. He will be based out of Louisville and has accepted a position up there, and he's working at the Tom Sawyer State Park in Louisville. He's worked with them since he took that job to be able to also share duties and work at the Jack Jewett House, which we really appreciate. We held the Frontier Days the other day, and one of the days was at the house, and it was really, really well attended and well received. Had hundreds of fifth graders there. And then the second day, the weather had them move that to the Red Barn at the fairgrounds. And but it was still a very successful annual event for us. Sam has done a tremendous job. He really has. He's an excellent executive director. You know, as far as having somebody like him for a county historic site, we've been very fortunate. But he's going to get married, and he's going to live in Louisville, and he has taken a position there. So we're looking at a lady, and her name is Linda DeRosset. She comes highly recommended. She's very qualified. She lives in Lexington, but has a passion for historical sites. She's volunteered at the Jack Jewett House as well. She was volunteering for Frontier Days. She comes recommended, as you all know, from the Heritage Committee and Sam Dunn as well. And essentially, the agreement that we are discussing is that she would essentially take on Sam's role for a similar amount for her contractual pay. And then she's in discussions with Teresa Tipton about whether or not she would take a health benefit or not. As you all recall, Sam Dunn does. And so essentially it would be the salary and either a health benefit in there. But it's the same total compensation as we've extended to Sam Dunn, and that is in the budget. So I had the opportunity to interview Linda as well. I felt like she was a great fit. She had the passion, the energy, the experience, and the qualifications to do a great job. I'll share that she's in a era of her life that she has a lot of time to give. Her daughter has just gone to college. She's empty nesting, and she's very interested in in taking on something like this as well. So I would open up the floor for any questions about the Jack Jewett contractor. Squire Varner, you're recognized.
Thank you, Judge. Will Sam have some time to work with her before, if she's hired before?
Yes, that's a great question. And the answer is yes. So Sam does, so his contract is based on hours. He reports hours. And so we will keep his contract in place through the beginning of her contract. I would say he will probably stay on in our discussions through the season, which is not through the end of the year. But yes, he's willing to do that, willing to train and help with that transition, which I think will be key.
I do too. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Squire Varner. Other questions or comments regarding the independent contractor for Linda Drossett? Any members of the court have any questions? Seeing none, is there I'll make the motion that we recommend Ms. Drossett for the independent contract agreement to the full fiscal court, and that we make that contingent upon the final review and approval of the county attorney and myself.
I'll
So I have a
second.
motion and a second. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please vote and signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. And the motion carries. The next item is an event coordinator position. So we have always done the event coordinating and participation in events basically through the second floor. Our Jordan and Melody and everyone else, Emily up here, essentially helps us do that, and that's not part of their job duties and responsibilities. Also, events in Woodford County and Versailles have grown significantly. The most high profile, the biggest events that we are partners and intimately involved with would be the 4th of July planning, the Halloween, Boo Bash, and Spooktacular planning, and the Christmas event planning. And so it's my recommendation that we contract with Katie Cooley, who was the former contractor for the city of Versailles for event planning and coordination, and work with us to make sure that, number one, our other county employees are not responsible for that event coordination as those events get bigger and more complicated and we need more coordination. And since the mayor is leaving, and I worked very closely with Mayor Trogett in budgeting, organizing, and helping plan some of those events. Now, the event planning and coordination, a lot of that happened in the city of Versailles and under their leadership. But we worked very closely in that, and I wanted to make sure that's another part of it is the coordination of both budgeting and funding for our signature events. So y'all see in the scope of work, overseeing organization community events, including but not limited to Woodford County Christmas celebrations, community 4th of July event, homecoming, because we always participate in the homecoming parade, Halloween, Boo Bash, and Spooktacular, and serve as the county's liaison for other community events, which may include Twilight Festival, which is a growing event, and any other event the county has an interest in. Key, and one of the reasons that I wanted an independent contractor in these positions is to budget, organize, and implement community event coordination. We decorate the courthouse for a lot of that stuff, and that would be under the responsibility of this position. Promotion. Promotion is a big one. We do basic promotion on our Facebook page, but as long as we're involved in events, we could help promote those as well. Coordinate with our community groups, the City of Versailles and Midway, Woodford County agencies, civic organizations, businesses, and volunteers to collaborate with community events. On occasion, report to the Judge Executive and Fiscal Court on the finances, status, and success of events and the unmet needs relating to operation and promotion of community events. When applicable and appropriate, to recruit partners and sponsorship for community events and provide other services as may be requested by the Judge Executive or the Fiscal Court. So I have talked to Katie Cooley. I've interviewed with her. I've discussed this. It's something that she's interested in. One of the things that we're working on right now is the coordination of Homecoming, Halloween, Boo Bash, and Spooktacular. And so I was hoping that we would be able to get this contract contingently approved upon the review of the county attorney and myself, so that we could get her to begin her duties for the county with events as soon as possible. But I do recognize, I think this got out to the court later than I anticipated, so I welcome the opportunity to ask any questions. Yes,
Did she come in and talk with the court?
sure, if you would like her to do that.
A little more time, it's kind of like, it's a whole lot in here, but you know.
So she,
Need one, I think we have a chance to talk to her, see her,
yes,
ask questions. Get a feel for what she's seeing, how she's seeing this.
and so she does work for Wrigley Media. She has some limitations on her time as far as availability. I'm sure that we can make that happen. I would request that individual magistrates meet with her. I think that Fridays are typically good with her and her schedule. Would that be good, Squire Blackford? Yeah, I recommend any member of the fiscal court that does not already know her and is comfortable with her to set up a meeting with her. Other questions or comments about the event coordinator position? Squire Varner, you're recognized.
Judge, just ballpark, how many hours you think that this job would require, you think?
So it's going to be, it's probably not going to be a weekly requirement, but in the event time period, it will be significant. I mean, I would say that definitely during holiday season, around Halloween, 4th of July, and Christmas, that it would be a much higher amount of hours. And this would be just like Sam Dunn, where she would keep hours and cover that time for the contract.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Squire Varner. Other questions or comments? So what I would ask is that if we could have a vote to recommend the independent contract for Katie Cooley for the event planner, the event coordinator, that we make that contingent upon each magistrate's ability to meet with her, and the county attorney and myself have a final review of the contract, which means that I'll allow the fiscal court the opportunity to schedule time to meet with her, and then it would not be approved until after each member of the court has had the opportunity to do that. We had a motion and a second. Are there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please vote, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. And the motion carries. The next item is the administration specialist at the road department. For this contract, so you all will recall in the fiscal year budget that we just passed, that we put in an administrative assistant position within the road department's budget. In our discussion of that position in the needs and the requirements of the road department, we've recognized with Sam Dunn, with some of our other independent contracts, that having the ability to be flexible is key to getting good people. And so Gail Smith is a former transportation cabinet employee. She's done transportation administration and state she's very familiar with state road funding, how state roads operate, and she's all around an administrative specialist, Squire Carl, which you know. And so basically what we did was we took some of the essential duties and responsibilities from the admin assistant position, and we included those in the contract for an admin specialist. And as you will see, this is a higher level, more executive level administration assistant position than just a regular administrative assistant. You all will note that Emily in my office is an executive assistant, which means it's a higher level assistant than the basic administrator position. But Gail Smith comes highly qualified, highly recommended. She is also in a period in her career that she can give her time to do that. You'll note that she's talked about less than a total of 20 hours per week. That's probably, in all honesty, in discussing this job with Ms. Smith, that's probably really around 10 to 12 hours a week. But I kept that up to 20 hours a week in case there was any additional responsibilities that she needed to go over, that we didn't have a contractual limitation on that. But what you can tell is we don't need in the road department at the moment, according to our road supervisor, Bo Wilson, and operations supervisor, Tracy Wright, a full-time administrative assistant. We need somebody to come in and help with some of the executive level administrative functions, to provide some backup and redundancy, and potentially even helping help train and work with some of the other road department employees on administrative duties, so that we can have a little bit more backup and redundancy from our administrative positions. So I will open up the floor for any discussion of the contract for Gail Smith for administrative specialist contractor at the Woodford County Road Department. Yes, sir. Squire Varner.
Judge, the 20 hours or less, so she will be keeping her hours, or the hours will be
Yes.
kept? So anything under 20 hours?
Yes, and so with all these contracts, we keep we have them keep their time, and then have somebody that can verify that time, and then that time's usually approved by me, and is always available to the court upon review. That time must be reviewed before an invoice is paid, and they are paid virtue of W-9 and through our accounts payable. So they're not paid through payroll as a contractor.
Okay.
So yes, they will, all three of these positions will be required to keep time. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, is there a recommendation to approve the independent contract to the full fiscal court pending the approval of the county attorney and myself? I'll move that if someone would give me a second. Going once. Is there no second?
I'll second the judge, and looking forward to having it in front of the full court.
Thank you. Thank you, Squire Varner. We have a motion and a second. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please vote and signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. And the motion carries unanimously. We'll have those contracts before the full fiscal court. Is there anything else to come before the Contracts and Leases Committee? Seeing none, we will be adjourned until 5:30 at the time of our regular fiscal court meeting. Thank you, members of the committee. Thank you to our guests. We are adjourned.